All right. Hi, this is Josh Duncan from Zenoss. I'm here with Mike Lunt. And Mike, why don't you give us an introduction of who you are and what you do?
I'm Mike Lunt, the Director of Engineering for Zenoss. I've been with Zenoss since early 2008.
All right. So, Mike, we've been talking a lot about the user interface of Zenoss. And I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of a history of the evolution of the Zenoss UI over the last 2 years.
Okay. What we did is in 2008, late 2008, we realized that we wanted to, that not everything with Zenoss was as easy out of the box, and we wanted to make some improvements and make it much easier, make the initial experience much nicer, much more intuitive. Also, we realized that we had a lot of screens and a lot of places where you could go get real deep with the product, and it was kind of hard to kind of work your way back out. And so we wanted to just, in general, simplify and make things much more usable. So there's been a little bit of an evolution. We started this in 2008. We started, with some screens that we took to customers, and then we started rolling some of these new UI components into the product, starting with 2005. Which in 2005 2.5 we changed the event console, made it much more modern. And scalable in some ways. We also added a wizard to set up your users and add devices in a much easier, so you can install the product and get going much quicker. Over that time in 3.0, you'll notice a much more dramatic change where we actually switched the nav from being a left column based nav to all the nav items being at the top. What that's really done is maximize screen space for the devices and statuses and events, and allow, just in general, better usage of the space. Some of the other things that we really added in 3.0, kind of in the background, was a much more advanced search, that you can search any object pretty much in the system. We also started to add some other common UI components that you see with other products. The inline help, you'll see with the page tips on most pages. And one of the more baffling parts of the product in the past that we've really improved and made more intuitive is the templates. There's a lot of power in the way that we can use templates to apply to devices and components. And what we do is we try to really pull out and show customers the inheritance model and allow them to customize the templates in a way that scales for them.
All right, so can you talk a little bit about how you approach this process and what type of research the team did to kind of decide how to consolidate some of the screens and so on?
Right. So what we did is we interviewed several usability experts, people that specialize in coming up with UIs that are user-friendly, easy to navigate, and quite friendly. What we ended up with was settling with is a person, Teresa Neal, who's pretty well known in the usability world. She's even got a book out on Amazon called Designing Web Interfaces. She's done some work for PayPal, Pervasive, Sabre, several other big names. But what we did is start going through workflows that were pretty, we thought were, we wanted to, instead of 50, we wanted to get you to the point in less than, say, 10 clicks. We wanted to get you to something much faster. And so what we did is we started going through the most important workflows that an IT administrator would go through on a day-to-day basis. And from there, we started coming up with some diagrams or some templates of what we think the new user interface would look like. Once we got those, we went into some high-resolution screenshots and started to show these, and started to do interviews with various customers and community members. And we started to post some of these out on the community sites and get feedback on what customers wanted to see in these various areas. And from there, we started to implement these screens. The most important one, we started with the event console in the 2.5 release. And also in the 2.5 release, we added, one of the key things that customers had been having a problem with was after the initial installation, getting a logon, figuring out and how to add devices. So in those two things, those were the first steps. And from there, with 3.0, we took the big leap in the sense that we actually switched the nav over. And so we've been rolling out small pieces of this navigation and this usability overhaul in the various releases, and you'll see more to come in future releases.
All right. So you mentioned operational workflows, and I wonder if you had a specific use case that you guys kind of worked with to try to improve,
Sure.
because customers had to do this over and over again. So
right. Probably the biggest workflow is we after talking to a lot of customers, realize that people look at things from kind of 2 points. They either look at them from they run their IT operations based either from an events point of view or from an elements point of view. Elements being devices and components. They look at lists of those things and the status of the various status of those things, or they look at an event console. And in often cases, people look at these all day long or have them posted up in a NOC showing what's the latest problems, and then they go and investigate one of these things. And the most important workflow that we really improved on was from the time that you see an event in the event console, you see something showing red, for instance. Clicking on that, seeing what the problem is, being able to navigate to the device or the problem, see that graph that's showing the giant spike in CPU or your memory out of usage, and actually going there and figuring out exactly what the problem is so that you can have the quickest time to resolution and go and solve that problem.
All right. So being new to Zenoss myself here, one of the big things I noticed with 3.0 was some of the visual nature of being able to visually see some of these things. Sure. And not just from the event console, but also from the service views. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the thought process there and what you're trying to help people do?
With the service views, that was an entirely new feature with 3.0. And with the service views, what we're trying to do is take the customer from the point of view of some important business aspect, and say your email or your website, something that the business is counting on, and look at all of the devices and components that make up that service, and show the dependencies for that service and the various statuses that are related to that service, so that you can have a single point of view. Instead of looking at thousands of things, you can start to prioritize which things are the most important, from the business's point of view, and therefore the IT person can focus on those. And with that view, we show a nice visual of the devices, their dependencies, and how they relate to the service overall.
All right, Mike. What else should we know about the UI and some of the changes that were made?
So one of the key things that we shouldn't forget, and that was a key driver for the new UI, is that it's built upon a new HTTP-based JSON API. All the UI components of the new pages, there's still a few of the older ZOAP page templates that aren't based on this, but what this is starting to allow us to build for the future is a supportable API that's based on common standards, such that you can do additional things besides UI components. You can do command. You can start to create command line and other type of utility type functions to change things outside of the UI, and which is pretty important in a systems administration role. And last but not least, I definitely want to thank all the community members and all the customers who sat with us for hours on the phone and gave us feedback on the web throughout the course of this. It's been a great learning experience, and you should know that while we haven't converted all the pages in the UI, we will be doing more and more every release, so there's a whole lot more to come.
All right, great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your time today.
All right, thanks, Josh.